Good morning, everybody. Hope you're having a fabulous day. This is Anna Abramowitz, your interactive storytelling coach. Now, today's session is going to be a little bit different. We're going to be talking about behavior change. We're going to be talking about what are some realistic expectations that you can have for when you're designing your own interactive story or any kind of really e-learning intervention, period, right? So if that sounds interesting, let's dig in. I'm just going to open up my comments here so I can see you guys. If you're here visiting, you better say hi. I love hearing from you. Now, I was recently reading a case study, and I'm going to start with a story because I seriously love stories and they help you contextualize a lot of the work that I'm doing. Now, one of the things I wanted to say too is if you're visiting and you're watching these videos, I commend you. It's awesome that you're doing this, and I know you could be doing a million other things, right? Jumping on and watching other people's lives and watching something a little more entertaining that has nothing to do with basically taking yourself and your skill set to the next level. Now, the thing is, I've been doing this for a long time, but that doesn't mean that you should take everything I say without a serious dose of skepticism, because I've met a ton of people who have also been doing this for a very long time, and they have basically learned their job in the first year and then just repeated the cycle over and over. They've innovated nothing. So anything that I say here, I want you to know that I've definitely tested it and my students have tested it, but that doesn't mean that you should take it as gospel. Make sure you're practicing and contextualizing this for yourself. The other thing I say is if you're going out and applying some of these strategies and tips and tricks and everything that I'm sharing with you, and you face your own context, it's probably going to work out a little differently. I'd like you to let me know. That would be awesome. I get messages every day from people who have either seen my webinar or who have seen some of the other training or have followed me and applied interactive storytelling, and they'll either say, Anna, that worked, I totally did it, but here's some of the things that I came up along the way. Can you, what do you think of this, right? So I love that, because one of the things that happens is, you know, I've done case studies where I'm like, okay, I'm going to show you how it works for these audiences. I'm never going to be able to recognize your context because there's so many different ones out there, right? So make sure you're letting me know where you're stumbling, because then it also helps me get better. Because then I think about situations that I could bring up that would maybe be helpful to you. So otherwise, thanks so much for being here. It's totally awesome. All right. So the story. So the story is, I was looking at this site. It was an education site, but what they were doing is it was for a hospital or something like hospital education. And what they did is they sourced this organization to take their regular training that they had online, and what they did is they added to it, they added voiceover and animated videos to their training. And this is going to be about evaluation, right? This whole thing about what is actually, when you're putting something out there for people to consume and learn through, what's a really valid metric for you to use, right, to see if you've been successful. And so these videos and this voiceover had been integrated into this learning. And so their measure of success was, what was their measure of success? Oh yeah, that staff spent 60% more screen time on the videos, on the tutorial videos. And then they did a survey for staff to see how satisfied were they. And they noticed that staff were like 80% more satisfied with this training. That's bullshit metrics. Sorry, it is. I know I shouldn't say that, but it truly is. The reason it is because what's the purpose of training? The purpose of training is not like, and it's funny because they were measuring like screen time. And I'm like, if you're measuring screen time, who measures screen time? Television. What's the aim of television? To make you sit in front of television and watch more television, right? It's actually the opposite of anything else as far as action is concerned. So if I'm checking on how long people are actually staying on, that's not, you know, if I'm interested in creating content and producing a bunch of content like YouTube videos, then yeah, I'm gonna care. But what's really my intent for putting together an interactive story? My interactive story's goal is to get people to do the next thing. What's the next thing? So we got to think about the next thing. So that's why, and it's funny because in our industry, one of the things we really just get all hung up about, it's like, it's either we measure the uber trivial, which means nothing, or we go all the way to beating ourselves up because we didn't increase retention at our organization with a single module. There's a happy medium, everybody. And let's talk about that, right? And this is what I want to talk about today, because I find that people either, like I said, fluctuate between these two things, but it's almost like we're not humble enough to say, I want this small little result, and this is going to be the little catalyst, right? So let's talk about learning in the big scheme of things. Like, what are we trying to do? When I talk about interactive stories, I see them as a catalyst, right? Can you guys see that? Let me know if you guys can read that the proper way. I sometimes mess myself up by putting this like in the mirror image and then nobody can read it. So what's the point of an interactive story? It's not to teach you how to be a great leader. It's really to help you be like, oh, damn, I got some gaps. Some's not right. I thought everything was awesome, but look, through this interactive story, I figured out I ain't so awesome, or I'm not making the decisions in the best way that I can. Look at these outcomes. Look at the outcome of this story. Wow. Okay. Maybe I'm making the same decisions, eh? Oh, thank you, Paul. That's awesome. So here I am, right? Now I know that my interactive story is not the moment that's going to get, like, let's say, a lot of times, one of the things you're trying to do in an organization when you're crafting learning, you're like, I'm trying to, do this so that people stay, so that staff retention increases, right? I'm doing this because I want people to get better results. I want our next quarter to be more successful in sales, whatever that is, right? So you know that in order to achieve that, it's not going to take a single event. And in fact, this single event might not show its results for the next quarter or 6 months, because in order for somebody to move from a state of unawareness, a state of not really good performance, what are they going to have to do? They're going to have to work. They're going to have to apply. They're going to have to take training. They're going to have to apply that training. And guess what? That's going to take time, right? And so a lot of times we do two things. We either expect immediate results. That's why when people talk about ROI, it's like completely nebulous, because what the hell does ROI mean? If I launch an interactive story in 2 weeks, I'm not going to see sales go up. It doesn't work like that. The interactive story is there to be a catalyst for that learning journey. Yes, some people will be action takers and they'll kick butt in the first 2 weeks, but that is a rare outlier which we should not rely on. I'm trying to get people to jump on this journey so they can go into the tutorials, so they can click that link. So really, and this is what's kind of fun and weird and not intuitive at all, really, is that if you're crafting something like an interactive story and you want people to take action, maybe the action that you should be measuring yourself on is how many people actually clicked on the link to go to the next tutorial, because that gives you several things. Right? That tells you that they finished the story. That also tells you that they got maybe an aha, right? Like, oh, maybe I do have a gap. Maybe that tutorial will help me. To me, that is an indication of success. And then you can start in that tutorial, see how many people finished it, how many people then went on to maybe, you're doing some long-term analysis, because what you want is kind of like the network effect, where one thing supports the next and supports the next. And over time, you see people going through this journey. You see people's performance improved, because it's a long game. We're playing the long game, and we play a little bit of a too short game. And of course, it looks so sexy, when I can say 60% of my staff enjoyed this. Enjoyment means nothing. I enjoyed Game of Thrones, right? Lot. Didn't teach me how to conquer countries and wield a sword. It did not. It taught me to sit on my couch and be glued to the TV. So enjoyment has nothing to do with it. It really doesn't. definitely I want people to enjoy the experience, but most of all, I want them to be challenged, right? Most of all, I want them to be, in fact, made more uncomfortable with their decisions that they're making because they might not be the best. I want them to be so uncomfortable, in fact, with the decisions that they're making that they go someplace to get more info because now I've shook them out of that comfort zone, right? That's really what learning is. You're not going to go to a tutorial. You're not going to go into the sales training if you think you're already awesome and good and your world makes sense. You don't need to, right? You're fine. The only reason you're going to go there is because you know you can get better and you want that info. And that's what this is all about. Me shaking you out of that comfort zone, showing you a potential of what could be that you're not achieving right now, and giving you putting in front of you decisions that really are challenging to you where you are right now. But it's not you that I'm challenging. It's a character in a story so that there's enough guard down that you're actually willing to be open to the message. Really? That's all this is about, right? So if I'm going to be measuring something, it's not going to be if they liked it. It's not going to be if they found it visually stimulating. It's not going to be if they finished it. I don't care if they finished it. Did they do the next thing? That's a true measure. That's a true measure, because the next thing for them maybe is actually getting into the LMS and checking out that first tutorial. And then I'm going to start measuring, did they actually complete it? And if they completed it, all I'm thinking about is next steps, right? So they finished the tutorial. What's my next step there? What's the idea? Oh, maybe I see a propensity for people after they go through the tutorials. I check the call center stats and I see that more people are asking for an upsell. People who have gone through it have a higher propensity for sales in the upsell. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to see what's the next action. What's this supposed to result in? Because if we continue measuring things in the training department's kind of, our own egotistical metrics, right? These are good for me, but are they good for the organization? Are they good for the learner? Then it's never going to change. I'm never going to have impact. And I remember, I told you at the beginning, I've been in this game for a long time. So when I first started, it was in training because I freaking love people. I was going to be a teacher, right? And that didn't pan out. So I got a job at a call center, and there I got to kind of move up the ranks and was a trainer for a long time. And training was awesome, right? I seriously love training. And we used to do these surveys at the end of training that would have a lot to do with, how happy were you? We had like a scale of 1 to 10. How happy were you with this? How happy were you with this? And I very quickly realized that there was zero correlation between people's satisfaction and their performance on the floor. I also quickly realized that there was a deep correlation between whether I served cookies and pop on the last day and that the survey was served and the results in the survey. So what does that tell you? Satisfaction has nothing to do with performance. Satisfaction may enhance performance in that moment, but the true measure was when those people hit the floor, were they performing? Was it, so that to me, that survey became an ego booster, but had nothing to do with real performance on the floor and my ability to influence that performance, right? That became a moot point. And it was funny because I'm always thinking about all these surveys that organizations do, and every single one, especially onboarding, everybody wants to have a survey about onboarding. People in onboarding, they have no clue what the heck is coming down the pipeline, right? They're still figuring out where the bathroom is. They're still trying to remember the acronym. So for you to say, how satisfied were you with this training? They will not give you anything accurate. They'll just tell you what you think you want to hear, or they'll tell you what is influencing them that day. And they could have had a really bad day. They might be stressed. They might not have had breakfast. Like all these things affect your survey results, right? So there is a way to actually structure surveys that actually give you feedback to influence the design of your learning interventions that actually helps them. And I actually talk about that in a different video. If you guys are interested in that, I can talk about this later this week as well, because surveys are important for stakeholders, right? They want to see surveys. That's why I saw these results on the site about staff staying on 80% longer. Sure, we got to do a little bit more education about, of our stakeholders about what is meaningful results. Like, what do we actually want them to be able to do at the end of this? And it has nothing to do with, I want them to be a number one salesperson. That's not going to happen, right? Maybe the thing is that you really want people to be awakened to the opportunities that are available to them that they haven't been seeing before. Because let me tell you, I talk to people all the time that say, our repository, we have a repository of this one organization. They had something like 600 courses in their LMS that they've built, the specialized technical courses for their staff. Like, somebody could get a Class A education, right? In this LMS. All they had to do was they work there and they could just move up their ranks with this education. Guess how many of those courses were actually being accessed over the year? Only 30% of them. Why? They were top of the line. So they were thinking, maybe they're not sexy enough. Maybe they're outdated. And I was like, no. Look at the rock stars in your organization. They've all been through these courses, right? So it's not that the information is not sexy. It's not that the information is not relevant. There's a bunch of people here who are top players, and the correlation is they've also done all this training. So why don't we find out what their catalyst was to make them see this as contextually relevant to them? What was it in their lives that made them believe, hey, it's worth it spending this time instead of going on Netflix. I'm going to spend my time doing this today. What was that catalyst? Because those people exist, right? So that's why when I talk about interactive stories, I always say, subject matter experts are cool, but you really want to talk to the people who are living that life, who have used those strategies to actually become that person, because you want to find out what that catalyst was for them so that you can share that with everybody else who hasn't found that, that moment yet that has sold them on that idea, because they're living in their bubble with their lens, right? So you want to create that catalyst, but be realistic about what the heck this catalyst is supposed to achieve and the timeline within which it's supposed to achieve it. Does that make sense, you guys? Is that helpful? I don't know. I'm probably, making some people angry here because they love their surveys, and that's fine. And I see actually a lot of times I'll share something about smile sheets and people will say things like, Anna, nobody does that anymore. That's so outdated. No organizations do that. I'm like, okay, I'd like to be proven wrong, but I see most organizations either, yes, use metrics that mean nothing, or two, don't use any at all. So if that's not you, please let me know. I'd like to see what you're doing, because that would be awesome. Because honestly, I want this to change, and I want us to stop either, fooling ourselves with some weird numbers that we've achieved success, or beating ourselves up and being beat up by everybody else because we're not getting, some results which we arbitrarily picked and are unable to achieve. Because guess what? This is just one little path in a learning ecosystem, and we're talking about humans, which is infinite variables, right? Somebody could I could paste this out for somebody and make it as amazing as possible. They're like, oh, I'm hot and enabled, I'm excited about this journey, I can't wait to spend the time. And then something happens, like they lose their house, they get sick, they get promoted, they get demoted, they get married, all right? So then for you to say, this is a perfect system with no variables I'm not in control of, and then you're responsible for these huge changes, it's not realistic. So what's realistic is to say, be super humble about it, and be like, really, okay, what's my thing gonna achieve? What is it that I really want them to do? And I gotta tell you, straight up again, with an interactive story, I'm not expecting anybody to walk out of that 15-minute experience and be like, I'm a freaking leader, I'm a salesperson, I'm gonna rock it. No, I want the opposite. I want them to be like, man, I thought I had it all together, but I need some help, I need some training, I need to up my game. That's what I want them to feel here. What I want them to do then is go and find the resources that'll help them. And so a part of, even designing an interactive story is saying, hey, do we have something awesome for them to go to after this that actually will help them move to the next level? Do we have that? And you'll find a lot of organizations have stuff, but they haven't really made this a clear, natural path. So that's part of the work that you're going to do, right? Oh, I'm getting so, Joanne, Sarita, I hope I'm saying that right. Sixto, so glad to have you guys here. It's awesome. And I've got, yeah, so cool that you guys are commenting. I really appreciate you guys, that it resonates with you. Hopefully it's something that you could, it's just a perspective. And I'm not saying, you know, that you got to have a link at the end, but you got to have something. Like if you're going to get people excited, if you're going to get people woke, right? Love that word. Then you got to have the next thing. It's like when my toilet is over flooding, I go to YouTube to find the video that'll help me fix it. I really don't care about whether the video is sexy, whether it's got animation. I just want context. I just want it to solve my problem. And so what I'm trying to do with the interactive story is create the kind of urgency in my learner that is almost equivalent to the toilet overflooding. Me going, oh man, what do I do? This is unpleasant. I want to solve it as soon as possible. And therefore, whatever contextual resources I'm going to find are going to be awesome because I now recognize their value in their context. Now, if they're super boring and terrible and not really practical, that's probably going to, you know, dampen that. But I've seen people persevere because they know why they're doing it. And once they've, as you've probably heard, if somebody knows the why, the how becomes irrelevant. Your why is strong enough, you'll go for it, right? So I'll keep on searching until I find a solution. And that's the point. So figure out what that is. And maybe for you, the measure is, can we get, you know, 50% of the people who go through this interactive story, can we get them to actually go into the LMS and click find that tutorial? Maybe we can give them the direct link and have them actually start the tutorial. Maybe we can have them reach out to somebody who is in that sales team to set up a coach or a buddy. What is that, right? That small baby next step. And that's how you measure your results. I think that's cool. I think that's achievable. And then if we stack those little actions on top of each other, imagine what can happen over 6 months. If you always think about what's the next little action I want them to take, and you're basically leading people up that path. That's grand changes, right? Exciting, exciting stuff. All right, so you guys, thank you so much for being here. And hope you guys are enjoying these sessions. If you find them useful and you find that there's other questions that come up for you that are basically about you hitting your context, right? And overcoming these challenges, please let me know. Post them in the comments. I always check out the comments. And if you like this video, make sure you like and share it. That would be awesome. It lets me know that you're enjoying it as well. And then it also pops up to the top of the screen for you the next time I go live. If you want to learn more about interactive storytelling, elearningsecrets.com is the place to go. And there you can also book a strategy session with me to see if this is something you want to get awesome at, and we can work together. All right, so I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Have a wonderful rest of the day.